All right, everyone, and welcome to Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and tonight we are here with yet another episode, as always. This week's topic is about Nintendo Power Memories, and joining me, we have two guests tonight, and both of them are the first-time guests for this show. We're going to be starting off with Zenspath, Jeremy Powers. Jeremy?
How's it going?
It's going good. And we also have Mantle Ferox. Mantle? Oh. I can't hear you, Mantle.
That's very weird.
Oh, now I can hear you. There we go. It's fine, it's all good.
See, the joke is usually if I curse at it, it'll sound off, so I'm happy I didn't have to resort to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got worried there for a second, too. I was like, I saw the lips move, but they didn't say anything.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, good to see the both of you. So tonight, we have, like, Nintendo Power Memories. We definitely have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes.
I shared you guys the notes with the topics of, like, within this whole major topic we're going to talk about. Because tonight it's all about Nintendo Power. But before we get started on talking about Nintendo Power, starting with you, Zenspath, what type of content do you do?
So I'm the creator and host of the Zenspath 4-Button podcast, which you can find us Apple, whatever, for all those things.
Yeah.
I'm just a games collector. We talk about, game collecting, technology, gaming news, stuff like that over there with a cycling assortment of guests, which we need to have you on there as soon as possible.
Eventually, yes.
Other than that, yeah, I'm just an electronics engineer who's been a nerd for life.
Yep. All right. And what about you, Mantle?
I am a variety caster. I often introduce myself as a marine biologist and a gamer. I am about a seven. I honestly play like pretty much everything because my whole thing is even if I have my favorite games, there's so many great games out there. I don't want to just shoehorn myself into just playing a few, whether offline or online. And I always have some games I'm playing offline for myself, and then some games I play on stream, and even offline. I'm about 70-30% Nintendo, PlayStation. Anything from retro to modern. There's a big joke that I'm a Zelda streamer. I have no idea why anyone says that, but
we don't get it either.
But yes, same as Zen. I'm a long-time collector, and a bunch of this stuff I'd collected before I even realized it was a collection. And now it's just like, hey, I got that. Look at that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's good to have the both of you on tonight with Nintendo Power. Like, we definitely have a lot of stuff to talk about. First things first, let's get onto the first part of the discussion. So starting with you, Zen, how did you first find out about Nintendo Power?
I am probably the oldest in this group, so for me, it started back on the original NES. I remember getting mine early in those days, and they had the Nintendo Fun Club.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't able to get those first issues, but it was something I started seeing in stores wandering around as a kid, excited about my NES, and would try and get those whenever I could, because that was something we would talk about, literally at school, on the playgrounds and so forth, who had the issue, what was going on this time. So, yeah, I've been there since the late 80s.
Very nice. Yeah, what about you, Mantle?
Same as Zen, been there since the late 80s, and a subscriber since the early 90s at the very minimum. I first learned about Nintendo Power from my dad, because my dad, even though he's not huge into video games himself, it is thanks to him that I played my first game system, his old Atari 2600, and then got my NES as my first system. Yeah. And I do, Dad, then and now, knows, he has confidence in my ability to game, but he also knows I want to take in every single bit of information. And also, let's face it, strategy guides and other information are great to have just in case. And I don't even remember when he got me my first issue, but I think it was a random one in the 40s or 60 volumes. I just remember pouring through it. And thanks to him, I wound up having a subscription from volume 70 on all the way through the end.
Yep.
And then I later wound up getting the original issues in between that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different issues all over the place. Because for me, I got into Nintendo Power. I actually got into Nintendo Power very late, but I first heard of Nintendo Power in the 90s. Because I've read a few issues every now and then. During the Super Nintendo era was the earliest that I remember, because my uncle had a couple of them. The first issue I remember seeing had the Addams Family on it. I don't think it was Professor's Quest. It might have been a Super Nintendo Addams Family game that they were promoting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that and seeing like some of the stuff, some of the games that they would feature, codes, trivia, as well as like they would have like people writing in letters asking them like questions, and they would sometimes get some good responses or some silly stuff in general. I remember reading stuff about the N64. I forgot which issue it was, but like reading about like the N64 when it was called the Ultra 64 at the time.
Project Reality.
Yeah,
and also that's cover of that one where they had Happy New Year and all that.
Oh yeah, but I started to get into Nintendo Power more like around 2001, 2002. Like I would read issues every now and then. I would buy issues from some of the local stores. They would usually get it around like the beginning of the month, and the first one that I've bought had Spider-Man on it because they were promoting the 2002 Spider-Man film, and that he was going to have games for GameCube and Game Boy Advance at the time. Mm-hmm. So he was on the cover, but the one cover that really got me the most back then was like in 2002, the very first time that I've seen a certain blue hedgehog on there that I'm like, wow, so many years of like the rivalry of like Nintendo and Sega, and to have Sonic grace the cover of Nintendo Power, which specifically they were advertising Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, and I believe they were also advertising the first Sonic Advance, but
Console Wars.
Yeah, the console war. Yeah.
I am a veteran of those.
I actually just realized, I think I remember which issue was my first one I ever got was issue 74, because I remember 75 was very vivid in my memory, since that was like one of the like old overlay Virtual Boy headset ones. Because I had read some of it during just the NES and Game Boy days, started getting it during the Super Nintendo days, and then when Virtual Boy was brand new being announced around all this, which that was pretty nifty. But for Sonic, I mean, same as you two, I grew up during the console wars. It was always like Team Nintendo, and to this day, several years, like 15 years after Brawl has come out, dear God, that's a long time now, I am still like teasingly convinced that Nintendo put Sonic in not just for gaming history, but so Nintendo fans finally have the chance to have Mario beat the crap out of him.
Yes, exactly.
Probably.
And and the thing is that I remember, like, okay, so I looked it up. It was the May 2002 issue with the Spider-Man. That was the first one I bought.
Yes, that was a good issue. Granted, they were all good. But.
Yeah, and I would buy them, and it would get to the point because they were $5 each at the time. And my mom was like, hey, instead of just spending $5 on a magazine each month, why don't you just subscribe for $20 for the whole year? And then I was like, yeah, I should do that. And and the first issue that I got, I believe it was the September issue. It might have been a September issue. I believe that was the one that had Super Mario Sunshine on it. That was the first one I got when like I subscribed. So... And from there on, like I've been a subscriber from then up until like 2010, where I stopped because at the time like in 2010 I was not really as into gaming magazines anymore, because of the fact that we had the internet. We could just use the internet just to go on and check out whatever you want and follow news there. But yeah, that was my first subscription to Nintendo Power. But yeah, but as far as everything goes, like the 90s was how I found out about Nintendo Power in general, and I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah, I think the 90s were definitely the kind of the high point for a lot of its popularity back then. For it's not, no pun intended, power over the whole market of gaming magazines, which led to so many others.
Yeah, and regardless of any of our collective love of Nintendo across the three of us, I to this day hold that it was one of the best gaming magazines. I mean, yes, was it for a specific company? Yes, but was it one of the best? Absolutely.
Yes.
Because like EGM was hit or miss, and then Game Informer was absolute trash.
Game Informer sucked, even back in the 90s.
It absolutely did. I remember so many times I used to, before I would still renew my GameStop membership, they'd ask me, okay, well, do you want to get this? And I'm like, do I have to get the subscription? Like, yes, you do. I'm just... Pretty much. I got a couple of, actually, because between travel, especially in later years, I got a couple of British gaming magazines, and those were awesome too. But Nintendo Power, I still hold that it was one of the best magazines, and their guides were also the best.
They were,
especially because for the guides as well as the magazine, they guided you. They didn't hold your hand.
They helped you.
They gave you all the tools. But they didn't just tell you exactly, hey, do this. That's Prima's job.
Mm-hmm.
I still loved their map layouts, though. Those were just fantastic.
Yes. But, for on that, I'll just go ahead and say that my favorite, because I know that they were talking about the magazine primarily, but my favorite guide they released was for Ocarina of Time. And it's not because just it's my favorite game ever, but because for anyone who's not familiar with it, that guide read like a legend. It was telling you, like, Link, you saw this and knew that, and it was just, whoa, this is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
They went all out for that one.
They definitely did. And honestly, for me, I just getting the strategy guides, I actually got a couple. Like, the first strategy guide I got from them was the Super Smash Brothers Melee soundtrack. Not soundtrack. I
love that one.
The strategy guide, yeah, I have that. I had a couple. But that was the first one I got.
Yeah, the first one I got was their Ultimate Nintendo Guide. That was actually, I got that game before I got Zelda 1 and 2, because this is the one that had all your information for the first 3 Mario games. Zelda 1 and 2, DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, everything. My cover is disconnected from this guide from how much I used it as a kid, but the guide is still intact regardless of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first one I ever got, and as we all know, that's like their first guide. I have all the way through their last guide, which their last guide, for anyone who's not familiar... sure you guys are, though, is the Twilight Princess guide.
Yes.
Yep.
And I was so sad when I realized that was their last one, but they went out with a bang.
They did.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, for the guides, the ones I had a lot of were kind of the later ones. Like, I usually got the ones like, here's the Mario paint that I use.
I have that
actually, this had 2 lives for me. It was back in the day on Mario Paint, and then this was how I would keep recreating stuff in Animal Crossing. Or Mario Kart DS for the logos. I would just copy those designs. Well, they worked. It was great.
Since we're on that, I know I don't need to say that, but I do have like every single issue of Nintendo Power. But for an idea of how much that is for those boxes like this, I have 7 boxes this size of strategy guides, not including my Zelda ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are bankers boxes. They're amazing, and I've got about 7+ boxes of Nintendo Power ones as well. Key though is you have to make sure you don't overload them, of course. And eventually, once I've got all those unpacked and everything, I'll make sure to report back to both of you with pictures, even though we'll be way on different podcasts by that.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
The other ones, you guys remember they did a special issue or special guide for the Super Game Boy, which was kind of their way of saying, look, we can do colors, but they also acted as mini guides for some of the games. Like, I loved getting all of those with some of the subscriptions and things. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where, same as you guys, regardless of how I found out about it, I kind of lived it even before I realized just how deep into it I got. And I never actually wrote into them, but I was this close to sending. I had found a glitch in Majora's Mask that I've never seen published anywhere online. And I spent so much time trying to write it, but I'm such a descriptive person, I just never got around to sending it. But I was excited to discover this glitch still exists in the Wii U version, as well as the 3DS remake.
Oh, wow.
And I never actually submitted it because by the time I was ready to, I was high school was getting crazy around the time, and I just didn't get to submit it.
Yeah, but yeah,
but it never made it in there. So if I ever publish this online, I'm the first person who ever said anything about it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you probably could have weaseled that into like what was it, Counselor's Corner, and what was the other one? Players Pulse. That was the letters section.
Players Pulse was where I wanted to set it, and I kept having that as well as various fan arts. I just never actually, you start something, you don't finish it.
Yep. All right. So now we'll go to the next thing. We'll segue into the next part of the topic. What was the era that you were subscribed to the most? We'll start with you, Mantle.
Honestly, because even though I started subscribing in the 90s, and that's where I know all of us really got like earlier collection with it, just based on years as well as for how long the magazine was, it was the noughties, which is the zeros. So for me, because that was an entire decade I was subscribed for, as opposed to most of a decade in the 90s. And by that point, I was older, knew how much I loved this. It wasn't just I was a kid, oh wow, look at this, but actually like really diving into it even more than I already had been when I was younger. And yeah, some of these issues I still have. They're still in their plastic, not because I didn't open them, but because I was that careful with them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
All right, very good. What about you, Zen?
For me, for actual like what I had a subscription going for, would probably be from the late 2004, early 2005, which is around the late GameCube, early Wii announcements, all the way up to the end of it, because around that time, beforehand, my parents wouldn't let me get the magazine, so I would either be reading it when I'm in a grocery store as best I could, or picking it up when I could save up some lunch money or whatever.
Yeah.
But my wife finally was like, you're buying these, just get a subscription. So she did it, and I just kept it for the rest of the time. So that's my most consistent of all of it, is from those years. So
yeah,
I can thank her for that.
Oh yeah,
for letting me do it finally.
Yeah, for me, like, the 2000s up until like 2010 was when like I was subscribed. Like from 2002 to 2010, throughout like the majority of the GameCube era, as well as most of the Wii era, that I was subscribed. Like I remember getting like an issue back in 2010 where it was like Mega Man 10 on the cover, and the art was basically they were trying to recreate like some of the box arts of the late 80s at the time, and I thought that it was amazing. I don't remember what was the issue, the last issue that I got where like the subscription stopped, and we never renewed. But I would get a few issues here and there. Like I got like a Mario 3 like anniversary issue, I believe it was in 2010, because it was like 20 years when we got it, and they were hyping up. No, actually, not Mario 3 20th anniversary. It was actually Mario 25th anniversary at the time, because that's what they were hyping. I think this was around the time Nintendo was starting to really get into doing anniversaries on the regular. So what I remember was they ended up just doing all that, like having the anniversary for Mario. So I ended up just getting that issue. And I didn't get anything in 2011, but in 2012 I got 2 issues. There was an issue that had Kid Icarus Uprising AR cards. I remember getting that because at the time I was collecting. I have most of the collection. I don't have all of them, but I have most of the AR cards from Kid Icarus Uprising because I wanted to collect them all. And then the only other issue I ended up getting was the very last issue. I had to get that issue. When I went to Nintendo New York, back when it was Nintendo World Store at the time.
Same.
I was there. Jealous. I was there with
same Shellshock. I've been there.
Yeah, I was there. I was there with my friends. Like we were actually just there just to celebrate the last issue and talked about like how much we love Nintendo Power, everything about it in general. How like we each used to read the magazines when we started, which era we started at, and in general, like just how much we missed it. But honestly, for me, like that's the thing. 2000, like the 2000s, was just like me in high school up until like when I started college, and I just like kept reading the magazines here and there. I've participated in a couple of the sweepstakes, but didn't win any of them.
Same.
There was a time where I remember that I actually ordered something from them. Like I was supposed, like as one of those, like when you resub, they would give you a gift. Like I was gonna get a strategy guide off of them, which they gave me that, and they gave me a bonus in 2003. So the strategy guide I ordered was Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and the bonus that they ended up giving me was like see, here's the thing. Game Boy Advance SP did not have a headphone jack for whatever reason. Like, we talk about how smartphones
I have specific headphones for it, I get it.
They were Apple before Apple.
Yeah, because like we talk about like how smartphones now don't have headphone jacks. Well, Game Boy Advance SP for whatever reason didn't, because like they added the backlight, but they took away the headphone jack just as a result. But to make up for that, what they did was there was an adapter that you could just plug into the link cable slot, and then you could be able to use that to listen to the game's audio. Which that's how I did it back then. And
I remember it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
you have to choose: hear your game or charge it.
And I genuinely just had the actual headset for it, but thankfully I was usually in a position where I didn't need to worry about headphones for it. So while I understood it and was frustrated by it when I did, it wasn't as big an issue for me. So going back, because I was able to better remember it now that you've expanded on more. Like I said, the era that I was the most subscribed for was the noughties, so like 2000 to 2010, that whole decade. But since my first issue I was subscribed for, I'm pretty sure, was July 1995. That meant that regardless of any of the portable stuff, I was there through the height of Super Nintendo, through N64 being announced and all that preview stuff. I learned about the N64 coming out and the GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U all from Nintendo Power first, regardless of the internet.
Yeah.
And same as you guys, I did. And it was just... It was always just the coolest thing. And because I mean, I know you guys, same as me, remember Project Dolphin or Ultra, and it's just Revolution.
The Revolution.
Revolution. Yep.
And back when the DS was just called dual screens, and what I remember was the E3 2004 issue, where like they hyped up the DS, they hyped up Twilight Princess, Resident Evil 4, and I believe Metroid Prime 2 as well. Because that year, like, that was a great E3 back then. Like,
I would love to find a way to stream it or something. They made an official DVD set from that year, and I have one DVD for each of the shows: Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and PC. But it has that entire reveal where they first showed off the DS, that whole pulling it out of his pocket and everything.
That's so awesome.
It's great to go back and watch it now.
Oh, for sure. Also, funny thing with that, now I'm seeing, I see Azza's in the chat. Azza is one of my closest friends, and she and her husband actually stayed with me for a few months when they were trying to find a job in the city that I was living in at the time. So Azza can tell you what my Nintendo Power Collection already was back around 2010.
Yep.
And that was... Yeah, so before its final years, as it was already on the shelf, she could tell you how much of that was Nintendo Power before it got even bigger.
Yes.
And it's even bigger now because I've been a day one Nintendo Force subscriber.
Oh yeah, totally. Though I would like to collect them again. It's just a matter of like having the space in my own place, but yeah, like
they take up a lot.
I think there are like some issues between like the 50s and 60s volumes that I'm missing. I need to finally sit down, go through, figure out which ones I am missing, and get those. Cause I'm a little aggravated because I know some of the prices might have gone up on some of those. And thankfully, I don't think most of those issues are the super expensive ones. So
let me know which ones you have, because I find them all the time when I'm looking around, and I also have a bunch of doubles I'm finding out, so I can try and help you out.
Okay,
will do, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like the ones I know I really want, like I want the Mega Man X issue, the like Super Metroid, the first one to have like Metroid Prime on the cover. I'll have to write down the ones I want like at a later time, and then start figuring it all out, see exactly which ones I will like. But the main thing about it is that the 2000s was just like, for me, like an absolute great time, despite the fact that the GameCube was not doing well, and then like the Wii ended up doing really well.
GameCube was good in my heart.
The GameCube, we all have to remember, we want to be really technical, the GameCube, Wii, and Wii U were all placeholder systems. Especially the GameCube and the Wii U. They were all placeholders. And the fact that the Wii did that phenomenal as a placeholder, and that the GameCube and Wii U still did better than people give them credit for a placeholder?
Yeah. And then it's like the Switch ended up just being like imagine Nintendo Power kept going on even during the Switch era. Like what type of issues we would get, like having Mario Odyssey on the cover, Breath of the Wild.
That's part of why I'm happy with Nintendo Force with it, because they absolutely do hold up the spirit of it.
They do, yeah.
But yeah, well, same as with that. I mean, the GameCube, same as you guys, I absolutely flippin' loved. And I am also going to die on the mountain that the Wii U was an amazing and underrated console.
I absolutely love it. If you look in the background of mine, I've got the actual display. I have a complete North American physical set.
Now, for me, the Wii U, but regardless of how much I love it, it is because it's one of my 3 favorite consoles, the other 2 being the Switch and the N64. The Wii U, I feel, was an absolutely necessary step to get to the Switch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
the Wii U walked so the Switch could run.
True, it absolutely did, and I still love it, and it's one of those things where I still have it hooked up, all ready to go at any given moment.
Oh yeah.
I've got 2 of them hooked up and ready to go.
In fact, I played Splatoon so much that I had to get an entirely different gamepad because ZR was too used.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
So I got a day 1 Wii U, but because of the it was cheaper to just buy a new gamepad, I wound up getting one of the Zelda gamepads because I couldn't justify getting an entirely different console for just a controller.
Yeah. Like I want to get myself like a second gamepad, but like my gamepad, my main gamepad has it has a case on it, and it's the Splatoon case.
Yes, because I've tried those cases, but my hand is just so used to it without it. But I have the hard and the soft cases.
Yeah, because I love Splatoon, so it makes a lot of sense. I remember just seeing so many different Nintendo Power issues in general, where there would be some games I never thought that I would actually play, and you wonder what's one game that Nintendo Power actually got me into back in the 2000s. And at first it wasn't as big. It's now one of the biggest Nintendo IPs. Animal Crossing.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And just seeing the commercials as well, where they had these real world parody commercials with the Animal Crossing villagers just hanging out, and I was like, okay, I'm sold. And my birthday money at the time went to that, and I got Animal Crossing, and I didn't think anything of it at first until I just kept playing every day. My brother ended up liking the series way more than me. Who would have thought? Even though it was my game, he ended up enjoying it way more than me. But yeah.
Animal Crossing was one of those series that, those things that you know way more about than you've actually played, watched, or read.
Yeah.
Animal Crossing was always that for me. I didn't actually play it until New Horizons, which I'm honestly glad for because of just how much they stuffed into that one. But I thankfully already had enough knowledge of the series from my friends and generally reading it in Nintendo Power and stuff that I wasn't just going in blind or anything.
Yeah.
But now Nintendo Power for me was just this is all my interest in one magazine. And even if it was Zelda stuff that I was already well versed in, I still just loved seeing it.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, it just. But yeah, no, and then I always every single issue of Nintendo Power back in the day, I view those same as I do any Nintendo Directs that come out. Even if there's a game listed in there that I know I'm not going to play and I have no interest in, I'm still hyped as hell because I know out there someone's interested in it.
Right.
Exactly. So let's talk about the favorite issues of Nintendo Power for a little bit. All right, Zen, you first.
So it's not just one for me. Every one of the ones where they would kind of have the blowouts of new hardware, be it, showing off talking about the Super Nintendo on the very earliest ones, the N64 unveiling, like I said, being shown as the Ultra 64, Project Reality when they were hinting at it at first, all the way up to the Wii U's blowout. I have that whole issue where it's the cover. There was a couple different ones of the Wii, because that brought up so much stuff. What's this Project Revolution? What's the system going to be like? We know what the controller is, but what's the, all that stuff. We're back and forth. We knew what the system, but not the controller yet, and all the theorizing. I think that's what I always enjoyed, was they would get in those discussions and kind of dig into that so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's always been what I've liked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just how it was. What about you, Mantle?
I will say that I have a couple honorable mentions. The hardware ones were absolutely honorable mentioning because same as both of you, I would eat those up.
Right.
One of my favorite ones is still when they were going over the 64DD, and that's one piece of merch tech that I to this day am
Well,
kicking myself for
expensive.
not being able to. Well, the thing is, back when I could have bought one for $600, I didn't have $600 to spare. Now I wish I could find one for $600. I did earlier this year in January get to see and touch a 64DD, so that was awesome though.
Right.
I still want one. So the hardware stuff, whether it was stuff that we actually got or not, those are absolutely an honorable mention. But when it comes to favorite issues, there are 3 issues that come to mind for me. And each of them for different reasons. First one is actually issue 100, which was 100th issue. So they did this whole big anniversary thing. And this was an issue that was released around 1997. So we already had a bunch of amazing games on the N64, but not the console was still very young. So we didn't have quite as many as it could have. So for example, they listed the #1 game of all time is Super Mario 64, and Link to the Past was #2. But I was also happy to see some of my other favorite games like Rescue Rangers and Demon's Crest making this list. And it was just a list full of early N64, as well as Super Nintendo, Nintendo, and of course Game Boy games. And this issue was the epitome of a celebration. I mean, the cover, you've got Mario jumping through a 100, and they're just celebrating not just what the magazine has done in those issues, but Nintendo themselves. And it was just all so wonderful. Then one of my other 3 favorite issues is issue number. It was right after that. It was issue 103, which was the first 100 beta screenshots of Zelda 64.
Oh wow!
It is, yeah. Issue 103 is literally. You can tell I'm getting like just geeked out just thinking about this issue, and because there were some later issues where they would add a few more beta screenshots and everything, but these are the ones where they were mostly showing adult Link, but he had his tunic, but instead of the white leggings and sleeves, he had like tan ones. And so much of it is so similar to what the game is, but you can tell this is beta. But there's, again, literally it's giant several page spread of 100 pictures. And it was the coolest thing. And even today, even though that game came out in 1998, it is still one of the coolest things to go back for. And I can try to find those images sometime online. And then my 3 favorite issues is issue number 114. That was the Ocarina of Time mega issue, the one with like Link on the cover of it, and they just like dove full into, hey, this game's about to come out, here's your information, here's a walkthrough of the first few dungeons, here's world stuff, here's character stuff, here's Zelda history, and it just compounded from what we had 11 issues prior, where we've just been getting this drip-fed Zelda content.
Yes.
And it just... Going back into something that we all loved in it, because remember, we all loved Player's Pulse, but we also loved the games forecast, which was so much easier to find. We loved it back. Yes, exactly. This issue right here. That's one of my 3 favorite issues. Thank you, Zen.
I was like, I saw it earlier.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, I'm so happy I have that one in such pristine condition, because I think I was browsing for it earlier just to double check which issue number it was. You're lucky if you can find that issue for $50 now.
No kidding.
Because let's face it, finding game forecasts online is way more of a headache than it should be these days. And I'm very picky about what game sites I use. Giant Bomb, I like the idea of, but I find ultimately it's just way too much stuff where it is. I do, however, like their game release calendar. They're very good at helping me list that out.
Yes,
and it's not the same as the old games forecast, but yeah. So the 100th anniversary, the first 100 screenshots of the beta for Zelda 64 before we even officially knew it was Ocarina of Time, and then the Ocarina of Time mega issue.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, because honestly, for me, it's that there's just so many great issues all over the place. Like my favorite issue, like one of my favorite issues was like, I gotta really think about that because there's so many.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can say all of them, and it's a valid answer.
Yeah. Let's see. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Nintendo Power. I forgot which one it was.
I think I remember that one. I have trouble remembering the exact numbers because there's so many of them. They blur together in my head. I'm just like, I have to go by particular games, but each issue covered so many different games.
They did. Yeah,
I want it all.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Volume 167. Okay. So that one was from like 2003. Yeah. They were also showing off Wind Waker in that issue. and a couple of other games. Oh God, Enter the Matrix. Oh God, that game. Wow.
Yeah.
I forgot that was even on GameCube. Yeah, I remember also getting the Wind Waker issue, which that's 165, and for that one, I remember like they were hyping up that, they were hyping up Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, they were Red Faction 2. What else was here? Rayman 3, Holim Havoc. Wow. And that's also the one where they introduced the SP. Yes, that one. I remember that one. Yeah, the Game Boy Advance SP. I remember they introduced that just because of the fact that people complained about the Game Boy Advance not having backlight, and then they ended up just introducing that, having the backlight, and there we go. I'm gonna look up another one to see if I can find the one I'm thinking of. Let's see. So another one I was thinking of. Let's see. Going into 2004. Let's see. E3 2004 Nintendo Power issue. Let's see. That one right there. It's the Resident Evil 4 issue, which also has the DS, and Spider-Man's on there because of Spider-Man 2. Baten Kaido, Star Fox.
Sorry, Baten Kaitos.
Baten Kaitos, okay.
Which if you guys have not played, sorry, I'm probably cosplaying it come January, and it's one of my favorite games ever.
I've been recommended to play that.
Shellshock, you'll love it.
Yes, I will eventually play it.
It's amazing.
Yes,
and it still holds up like really well graphically today.
Yeah, so the E3 2004 issue, just because that.
Oh yeah. They
showed off so many games from that: Metroid Prime 2, Resident Evil 4, Twilight Princess, the Nintendo DS, and all the games for it. More Game Boy Advance games in general.
2004 was just a massive year for news, regardless of anything that was coming out. Yeah. It was just so good.
And then there's one. Go ahead.
I was going to say, which helps because 2004 hit me with a lot of hard stuff in the middle of it, but to have all that stuff helped around it.
Yeah,
I mean that E3, like we're talking, that was Half-Life 2, Halo 2, like I said, Metroid Prime 2, just all this other stuff. I enjoy all of them. Oh yeah, but it was just, that's part of why I got the DVD set for that year, because I was like, good God, there's just so much stuff here.
But here's what. Well, I'm gonna share it to the both of you that you'll see it. But this one issue in general, I remember getting this one. So this one right here was about the because around this time they changed the logo, like in like 2004, 2005.
Yes.
And this was the Revolution, Mario Kart DS.
Yep.
And also, I think this might have been around the E3 2005. And yeah, it was like, I remember Twilight, like seeing more of Twilight Princess, and also like the revolution of what's to come, and I believe that was where like they announced, oh hey, guess what, guys? The revolution is going to have Smash Brothers. To which I remember Sakurai had no idea they were going to announce that, and then Satoru Iwata, like not long after the E3 conference, went up to Sakurai, talked, and then the next year we got to see the trailer, which I remember seeing that, and that was actually insane, like just how for the first Brawl trailer,
speaking of Brawl.
Yes.
The first Brawl trailer, you have Solid Snake in there, and I remember I was just watching. I was like, "Wait, what's going on? Like, what is this about Metal Gear Solid?" And then it turns out that Snake was in it, and there were people who were saying, "Snake, they're not going to put Snake in there." Those people who said that.
I'm just going to point them back to the old NES game.
Not to mention Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes on GameCube.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that's the other thing. Because from what I found out later on was that Hideo Kojima wanted Snake in Smash since Melee, but they couldn't get him in Melee in time. And the reason he wanted Snake in there is because of the fact that his son loves Nintendo and enjoyed Smash Brothers. So he asked his dad, "Why don't you have your character in this game?" To which he did, and it turns out Sakurai and Kojima are really good friends. So, but unfortunately, timing just wasn't the issue, and that's also the same reason why in Melee, Sonic wasn't in it, and yet both of them ended up being in Brawl.
I honestly think it made it better for them to be in Brawl, because Melee, the 25 characters, was just such a nice balance for back then, and that made Brawl an even bigger deal, which none of the three of us knew it at the time, was just a nice blow to the Melee supremacists. And don't get me wrong, I flippin' love Melee, but it's not the only Smash Brothers game.
It's not.
I've always enjoyed Melee, but yeah, it's not the last one, guys.
No,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I will still go back and play it. I'll go back and play each of them, but to me, the series just keeps getting better with each one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, was Melee amazing? Yes. Will I still go back and play it? And the original? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. One like I'll also point back to the issue with Mega Man 10. Let me actually see what number that was. Let's see, Nintendo Power.
While you're looking for that, some of the ones I was talking about with the hardware issues, I always enjoy, like the Wii, the Wii U. You know, a lot of those I had here as well. Yeah, I found a couple of my Zelda ones you probably like.
Oh yes, I love that one too.
And
I will say also that's like, while we're going back on the whole revolution thing, that was one of my big catchphrases back in the day. It was, well, yes, this just proves that the 360 is not a revolution.
Wow. And go ahead.
The thing about Mantle, I don't dislike Microsoft as a company. I just never wanted them in the console business.
That's fair. Yeah.
I always enjoyed them. And I did find this is the one you were showing us earlier.
Yes, that one.
I knew it. I was like, I just looked at it.
You just looked at it, and that was it.
So I'm like digging through magazines.
Yeah. And for the record, that Mega Man 10 issue is actually the 250th issue.
Yep.
Nintendo Power did not make it to 300.
Nope.
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, like Mega Man 10 was the 250th issue, and I remember getting that just in the mail, and I was just absolutely excited. This was January 2010, and I remember just coming home from college, from my last class, and all of a sudden, like, my mom just gives me my issue that I got from the mail, sealed up, as they always do, because I want to bring up something. Around like 2007, it shifted from like Nintendo of America to a company called Future Holdings or something.
Yep.
All because the person who was running Nintendo Power while at Nintendo of America at the time, which was Gail Tilden, she was leaving Nintendo of America around that time. I don't know what she's doing now, but that was around the time she left. So. And they decided that they were going to outsource it, but it would still be endorsed and licensed by Nintendo. And they were going to work closely with Nintendo around that time, which was from then up until 2012. But I think Future Holdings, whatever media, they had other issues, other magazines that they had under their umbrella. It's just that they also happened to have Nintendo Power around that time.
Yeah, they had Future. Future was a UK-based publishing company that they had a US branch, which was Future US, which is the one that took over Nintendo Power from them with a licensing deal. So,
yeah, I don't know if they're still around. I don't think they are, but
I'm not sure on that one.
Let me double check.
I was say we have the internet.
Oh, there was another variant of the 250th issue. So, I'm assuming that this one right here was for retail, and the one I got was...
That's the one I have. I was like, I don't remember the Mega Man one.
Because the one I have, that was the subscriber one.
Oh.
So that one was basically for anybody that just want to buy Nintendo Power from the store, and the one I got was like, for the hardcore Nintendo fans that also love Mega Man and are excited for Mega Man 10... I was at the time, and it's actually my favorite in the classic series. Hence my hat, Mega Man.
Okay, yeah, Future US as well as Future PLC are both around. They've just, as with many magazine publishers, don't have as many issues these days.
Yeah, it's just the sign of the times, how different things are, is just not the same anymore. So sadly, video game magazines are just a thing of the past.
They,
Except for Game Informer, but who needs Game Informer anyway?
Game Informer doesn't count. Game Informer is overblown advertisements with the occasional nifty picture.
It's meant to sell your GameStop subscriptions and trade in bonuses and some other stuff. But yeah,
I think honestly one of the only consolations about video game magazines not really being as much these days, except for the certain couple ones that have continued online and are doing quite well on the new format. I guess there's also other bunch of magazines that aren't being sold anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that.
Oh God.
There's just a lot of them that just don't exist. There's like I remember GamePro, EGM, and so many others, but they don't exist anymore.
EGM got so big they had to do a spin-off separate one, which they would publish EGM 2, which I would get as well.
Yeah, and it's like, do I miss the video game magazines? Absolutely. But there's a part of me sometimes that whenever I'm walking like in an airport or something, and I look and see all the magazines which are on display there, and a part of me is just like, this all sucks. This is just as bad as it was back in the day, and I'm like, why haven't these gone like extinct as well?
Yeah, I mean the problem a lot of it was they couldn't keep up with the publishing time. Like even now, like doing our show, we get news that could be released that day that we're covering on the show that night, and it would at least be a month, if not 2 months, before you would hear about stuff. Like E3 was a big thing. It would go on. We wouldn't know what happened until we got the Nintendo Power E3 issue or EGM E3 issue.
And that's part of why I also try to remind people that today, even with as fast as the internet is, E3 is not the end all be all, and that's why they need to calm down whenever Nintendo or any other company doesn't unleash all their big news, because everyone else is unleashing all their big news. If you unleash all your big news, it's going to get buried.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you unleash some of your big news.
Well, a lot of this, people forget E3 was not intended to be a big showcase for everyone. It's intended for retailers to see the games and figure out what they have to order.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is important as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's just how it actually was at the time. Yeah, like E3 was I forgot when was it that E3 started to become more for the public, and then I know
it was like late 2000s, late noughties.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even before that, some of them kind of becoming. It was, you're talking about the public side of it. Like it was always talked about for most of them, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I remember just playing so many different games that I was just hyped for after seeing them in E3. But there was just so many E3s that I remember just watching. I think 2007 or 2008, 2006 was actually the first one I watched live. But yeah, otherwise it was just Nintendo Power. I was just mostly reading Nintendo Power or other gaming magazines in general.
The one where they revealed the Wii U was one of my favorite ones.
Oh yeah,
I actually got to watch that one live on my dad's computer. I'm just sitting there like, look at this. Because everything else I was reading about after the fact, but this one I actually got to watch live on the computer. And the funny thing is that for any other E3, I've usually had to scuff around my work lunch or take my lunch early or just ignore social media until I get on lunch and then just watch it from wherever.
Same, yeah.
The funniest one was the one last year. You guys probably heard an explosion from Western New York, which is where I was living at the time. I'm in Florida now. I was working a stopgap job, which was terrible. The antithesis of me and who I am, but I had to pay the bills until I could get to my current job.
Yeah.
I talked with my shift lead, who, even though the company was terrible, shift lead was a good dude. He's like, hey, can I take my lunch early today? Yeah, sure. Just make sure you're back in time. All right, cool. Went to my car, plugged my phone in to the aux port, and I had joked with one of my good friends, random bystanders, like, it'd be cool because we made a bingo card from the most likely to the most unlikely things. Everything from, we'll get news about this, to GTA on Switch. And one of the ones I had put on there was Metroid 5, as we know, Dread.
Yes.
And sure enough, I'm just like...
Yeah. I was just absolutely, amazed. I was excited for that one.
Honestly...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the other funniest one, though, a happier one, was when I was at my aquarium job a couple months ago, This was E3 2019 when Tears of the Kingdom was first revealed. And as you guys know with me, huge Zelda fan, I caught it with Zelda as soon as I heard that first note, even before we saw that first pixel. The pixel before we saw the flame just like confirmed it.
Right.
I had to delay watching it by an hour because of time zones as well as my lunch at the time. Because I couldn't shift it there. So I'm outside where the only bit of Wi-Fi, only bit of network is, and I'm watching. I'm just increasingly, and then I'm finally walking back down. I have to clock in, but I'm still watching. I'm just trying to not explode. Swing my arm, and one of my closest friends on the team, thankfully, he's like, "Hey, Mantle, you okay there?" Because he's a big gamer himself.
Yeah.
And I just it was one of those things where I couldn't be as like openly audible about it, but my face was like lit up the rest of the day. So you do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that's the thing, because I remember just reading up about E3 through Nintendo Power, because at the time, like, even before I had a computer, I would just read up about games that were announced. And I know, like, for 2002, they showed off more Wind Waker, they showed off Metroid Prime, and Super Mario Sunshine was coming out really soon at the time. But, like, I remember 2003 was just... I think 2003, let's see what we had that year. We had Pac-Man versus, we had...
Fire Emblem,
Nintendo Puzzle Collection, which never seen a release outside of Japan.
We also got Tales of Symphonia.
We got Tales of Symphonia, yes we did. I think we had a different look on Resident Evil 4, but it was still like the older style and not the style where it ended up being.
Either way, well, this is when we were also a couple years prior when we had first gotten the remake in Resident Evil 0. And we were getting some of the fill-in games until RE4 came out, which at the time, as we remember, was a GameCube exclusive.
Yeah.
Which was amazing and hilarious to me at the time. And same as I have Link to the Box, which is only on GameCube. But
I still have my chainsaw controller even.
I thought about that one, but I knew I wasn't going to use it. So, which is really funny though, because now I collect controllers. But I'm glad that you're mentioning all the Shellshock, because looking at all of it is like, the three of us learned about like E3 and Tokyo Game Show and all these other expos thanks to Nintendo Power. If it wasn't for this magazine, we might not have known about them by the time the internet's picking up on them.
We wouldn't have, because E3 started in '95, and that E3, Nintendo said that Nintendo 64 was delayed from '95 to '96.
Yep.
But they did show off. I think they didn't really show up that much of 64, but what they did show. Like, it was Mario 64. I don't think they had... That one did not have Zelda 64. That was, like, later. Like,
right.
Yeah, Zelda 64, they were, like, purposely, like, very, very delayed on... Like, staggering on that. I'm trying to double-check when they first mentioned it. Hang on a moment.
I think they mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it took a while before they showed anything.
It was first mentioned, like really started being mentioned even more around January '97. They weren't talking as much. Oh yeah, October '96, they had an interview with Shigeru Miyamoto about Mario 64 and Zelda 64. So that's October '96. So that's right before the N64 came out over here. So yeah, no, they were talking about it back then. But yeah, so. The N64, I mean, regardless of it just being an amazing console, Nintendo Power hyped it up even more for me. I mean, I would have been just as hyped without it, but...
Yeah.
So, funny thing, though, is, like, I need to find it from my dad sometime, because he was always been the big photographer. My N64 was my big Christmas present in 1996. Yeah. And there is a picture of me opening it. I'm sorry, N64 kid has nothing on me.
Yep.
I said what I said. Because I was trying to open something smaller, which I found out later was one of the memory packs. My parents were like, no, open this big one first. And I'm just... But the funny thing about it, too, is because we didn't have as much E3 or that, is like, I love the controller. It's one of my favorite controllers these days, but I actually got frustrated at a little like testing thing at a convention one time because I didn't know how to hold the controller for Mario.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have as many places to show it yet.
Oh, yeah. So, the next thing that I want to bring up is... And this is going to be a bit of a downer in a way, because the topic now is, how have you felt when you found out Nintendo Power is ending? And Mantle will go with you first.
I was devastated. I already knew just by seeing how the landscape was changing with other magazines and was just the rise of the internet. When I was happy that they announced it as far out in advance as they did, but when I read that announcement, not online, but in my next issue of Nintendo Power, because since I was a subscriber, they had an individual letter saying, hey, we've decided to do this. We're going to give up through this. Thank you so much for these past several years. This will be that last one. And I still have, with my last issue, the last letter that came with it for subscribers.
Yeah.
And I was just, I wasn't like crying or anything, because I mean, first off, I'm tough to cry anyways, but I was just like, no! And I read over it, like, I know this has to be a mistake, but I also understood it. So at that point, I was even happier that I had all the issues that I did. I went back and was reading some of them and made sure to pour through everything I could in that issue and all the next issues just to absorb it and live it as it came out, and have then continued on with that. So for me, it's not even bittersweet. I mean, end of an era, yeah, but it was just sad. And I knew that with the ending of a magazine, that didn't end my love of these games or, of course, my intake of news. But yeah, sadness is just the only way I can describe it, because this was something that had been a part of my life for like nearly 20 years at that point. And it was going away. So it was something that I had always kept a subscription at my parents' place. And then I later changed the address whenever I moved with me.
Mm-hmm.
And after, I just to like boost it a little bit, after it ended and Nintendo Force was announced as a collective between some former staff from Nintendo Power, as well as the artist of Brawl in the Family, even a couple of actually decent IGN people, which I know is very rare.
Yeah.
When Nintendo Force was coming out, I jumped on that wholeheartedly back when it was a Kickstarter before they moved to Patreon. And I've been a day one subscriber for them, both the digital and the physical issues, and those sit with my Nintendo Power. And I know we were discussing even before the podcast began, those absolutely hold up the spirit of it. It feels like the same issue without just being a carbon copy. So it's like saying, hey, it's like part 2. It's the sequel.
Yeah.
And I love that it's the same, but also different. So that really softened the blow after the fact. And I was like, okay, cool. It's still continuing in this way, at least the spirit of it. And to me, I would rather have the spirit of it continue than trying to just drag it out and potentially it just lose the quality. Because Nintendo Power, as we've discussed this whole time so far, from 1988 all the way through its last issue, it maintained that high quality.
It did.
And Nintendo Force is still doing that in making sure that it keeps up. And I'm happy that Nintendo Power ended on a high note instead of trying to drag themselves into obsolescence.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. Like, I actually do miss Nintendo Power a lot, but I'm glad that magazines like Nintendo Force still exist just to keep the spirit going. Zen, what about you?
I know it's cliche for a lot of the stuff of like the end of an era, but it's like watching one of the giants of your childhood fall. Because that's how we did get a lot of it. It was not unexpected, just in seeing the fact of the way the internet was arising and information was kind of spreading and going out from there over the magazines and how much faster things could go out. But it was still something I grew up with that I could always kind of relate to and see. And, I haven't found a magazine other than that's kind of replaced it, but just to mention the other show, Nintendo kind of brought back Nintendo Power in a way with one of their original editors, Chris Slate, who took over at the later part of it, kind of doing it. And yeah, it's a different layout, but at least they're acknowledging the name and kind of continuing something with it.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. Like
it's not
that magazine, and I still treat them like little, they're little capsules back in those times. I can go back and see the opinions. And so I do for a lot of gaming magazines that I collect, stuff like this, the old Metroid issues and so forth. People it's just to look at it, even to see, like, there's the old boxes. That's the way the advertising used to be. And
yeah,
they're windows into those time periods. And it's been helpful kind of explaining to my kids, like, hey, here's how the gaming was during this time period, or when you were born, or, when I was younger, things like that. it's a little easier to do that than just pull up a website because those can go away. These you can find. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was bittersweet.
Yeah, like I know about the Nintendo Power podcast, and I've listened to a few episodes, and it's not bad. It's actually decent. It's just not the same. It just
can't be.
You're taking something that was a print magazine and turning it into a talk show, and it's like that's great that they're keeping up with that name and spirit, but those are two completely different media.
Exactly. Nothing against them. It's just not what I want out of Nintendo Power.
Yeah, it's like to me, it's like I like that they're doing it, but I think a different name would be more appropriate for it.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's official, but and they can't use the name, but that doesn't really mean that they should use the name.
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, let's face it, we're all into various types of media, and we know that some things do translate well, like how many things are decent manga that then become anime, or how many books or whatever actually do get turned into video games, and many of them do work well. Case in point, Shadows of the Empire. Incredible book, incredible video game. But then we also know it's thankfully not the reverse of what most movies make terrible games. I say most because we all know there are several amazing exceptions. Hysterically enough, I did want to mention one exception. Wolverine Origins, the game is actually amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
but the movie, I'm an X-Men fan. I enjoy it, but I'll just be like, I know it's cheesy as heck.
Yeah. And
then a worst example was The Mummy. That movie bombed an entire franchise, but my God, that game was so much fun.
What I remember, what I was gonna say was like then you have like examples of like games that would be adapted to TV shows or movies, and not a lot of them are that great. Like the track record just hasn't been that great. We're starting to get some more now, but the thing about this is you have like different mediums, and just having Nintendo Power at turning from a magazine to a podcast. Again, not a bad podcast, mind you. It's just not what I wanted. It just doesn't feel the same.
I have an argument on that one, though. It's may not be what we want specifically, but like Nintendo Power, especially like my daughter, she's mostly blind. She likes to listen to podcasts. That is what Nintendo Power is to her. That's for her generation of how she listens to it.
Right.
And she can go back and look and see. So at least, like I said, Nintendo does own the name. They're going to continue with it.
Yeah.
The conversations do feel like some of the articles and type of things they would write or try and cover. It's still going to be an advertisement for some of the Nintendo stuff. That's what it's always been. That's not even a surprise to me.
It's just they just add some sprinkles to it to make it look less of an advertisement.
And it's like, and it's like full disclosure. I have not got to listen to the podcast yet, so that's very encouraging to know that they do feel like the articles. But like, I even though I readily admit I've not got to listen to it yet, I am aware of it. I'm happy it's there. And the thing is with Nintendo Power, even without listening to it, like I said a bit ago, I know it still has the spirit of it. I will readily defend that because that's who Nintendo is.
Well, they bring on like developers for different games or different people to talk about them, so you kind of still get. It may be a new format that they can get out to people that isn't going to be the publishing cost and going through all of that. You know, and they have their website and all that stuff to cover the news part, but you still get that kind of peek behind the scene that we got as kids of going like, oh, this is how that's made, or that's how this is done. And it's just kind of, it's just fun.
Oh yeah, and then as far as like shows and stuff go, if we look back at some of the late 80s and early 90s video game shows, yes, a bunch of them were cheesy as heck, but they had limited stuff to work off of. And through the day I die, I will readily say that the Zelda cartoon was so much better than everyone rags on it, but it was actually a damn good show. You know how?
Excuse me, princess.
Excuse
me, princess.
So like, funny thing, I actually cosplay that version of Link from the show.
I'm Mega Man.
And you're just picking etiquette, but I actually cosplay Link from that version of the show, and my friend cosplays Zelda with me. And so many people get that we're from the show and not one of the other games, so that's always fun. And the picture is always like her just looking at me like,
yeah.
but no, it's just such a fun casual cosplay. But no, those were fun. The Super Fighting Robot Mega Man show was better than anyone will ever admit.
I will 100% agree.
Roll kicked ass.
She did.
I'm still remembering all the people from Captain N.
Oh, yes! Captain N.
That's the one that's what I grew up with. I mean, I was so into it. I had the Nintendo Power or the Nintendo cereal system.
Damn right,
I remember getting those.
Because Captain N was based on a short-lived comic book character within Nintendo Power called Captain Nintendo. And then they ended up making Captain N. And I remember the show originally had a different name, and there was no Simon Belmont, just Mega Man and Kid Icarus, or Pit. And like, I watched the show, I barely remembered it as my childhood, but I've seen it much later, and I ended up not liking it at all. Like, what got me was, like, just, like, Kid Icarus always ending everything with Icus. And then, like, Mega Man going, Mega High!
Yeah.
I never said it was the best.
I didn't like Captain N as much as the other shows, but to me, it's just a goofy nostalgia bomb, and I appreciate it for that.
My childhood.
That was the age of that. I mean, that was my time.
I also coordinate a bunch of yes.
Oh no, I was saying continue.
Oh no, that was it. I also coordinate a bunch of Nintendo photo shoots at the cons I go to, everyone, and it's always fun when we do get a Captain N there, or some of the other ones, and especially whenever, like, hey, let's do a Captain N section. We get Captain N and then certain characters from the show if they're there. Yeah. And even if people don't get it, they're just like, okay, this is cool. And honestly, I'm not going to pick on someone for not getting it. But even for other ridiculous shows, like the Darkstalkers show was better than it had any right to.
Oh, Darkstalkers, yes.
I have an entire section of video game-based show DVDs. So, yeah. But,
oh, Lord.
But yeah, so those again are an example of medium those work. But yeah, for the podcast, again, even though I've not listened to it when it came back in 2017, I am still happy that they've brought it back, and the accessibility factor right there is a big key. I think a lot of people blank on. So but no, it's just, I mean, but even though I was very sad when I realized that the magazine was ending, at the same time I knew that wasn't going to take away from the issues I had, much less the memories I had with them and what that amazing publication brought to me.
Yeah, right there at the end, though, it did bring back one thing that I did like about it. And I know we haven't mentioned it yet for all this, but did y'all ever read the Howard and Nestor?
Heck yeah.
I've read some of it, yeah.
Yeah. Originally Howard and Nestor, and then whenever Howard Lincoln left Nintendo, it became just Nestor's Adventures. But that ran for like the longest time, but then they did bring it back on the very last couple of issues as kind of a goodbye, which was kind of heartbreaking. I think that's the hardest part. I was just like, oh dang, they're back, and now they're saying goodbye, and I was like, man, I grew up with reading those.
I hate to have to correct you, but I just want to say real quick, it's actually Howard Phillips. Howard Lincoln was the asshole lawyer.
Sorry, you're right.
That worked for Nintendo as a vice president, but yeah.
The funny thing is, I had paid for a book through Kickstarter that Howard Phillips and one of the other guys are doing, where they're doing an entire book about their time at Nintendo Power and with Nintendo, and it's all done up as a Nintendo Power style, with the comics in there too, which I'm waiting on. So,
they actually got the artist from Brawl in the Family for that too.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm so sad because he was actually at my home con a number of years ago, but it was before I got really into the comic, and I missed the chance to meet him. I walked past his table several times, but it's okay.
I never met him in person, but I've actually had some interactions with him online, and he's actually very nice.
Oh, for sure.
But I didn't even get a chance to talk about how I actually found out that, and how I actually felt. Like, the thing is, to my surprise, I was not really like shocked, but I was actually upset. Like, I knew it was going to end at some point.
Yeah.
I just didn't know when it was going to end. And and I was thinking that they were going to at least end it to at least when they reached 300. The last issue was 285. I think that they were going to end it at 300, which would have meant that they would have finished it at some point in 2014 if they would have continued it. But no, they ended it at 285, so it did not go past 2012. Not only that, but also 2013 would have been the anniversary at the time. Like, it would have been the 25th anniversary, and now next year would be the 35th anniversary if it was still going on for Nintendo Power. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I just remember like finding out that like just looking online and saying that the next issue of Nintendo Power was going to be the last one, and very fitting just to have Mario and claymation jumping. But instead of King Wart from Mario 2, they used Bowser because they were basing it off of New Super Mario Bros. U at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's the only Nintendo Power issue to have reviews for the Wii U games because it was launch Wii U at the time, and like just reading all that, they also sent an apology to the person who won the Mass 2 contest because that movie ended up getting canceled.
Yep.
And I did read up that there was someone, the person who won that contest did speak out, and he mentioned exactly just what they did for him. I believe he got a Nintendo 64 and a couple of games at that time, and also I think I don't know if he also got an issue of Nintendo like a not issue but like a subscription for like a year, because they were making good. But they also gave him some cash money too, just all that just to make up for the fact that he won the contest, but the movie was not going to happen because Jim Carrey felt that after the second Ace Ventura movie did not perform well, he felt that he just doesn't think he could challenge himself to do sequels at the time.
Yeah.
Which now he's doing sequels to Sonic, but that's another story right there. But yeah, so the movie was canceled, and Nintendo of America at the time felt like they just needed to do what they can to make it up to the kid that won that contest, and they did. So it was a happy ending.
Yeah, Nintendo contests, if people win but things go wrong, it's always kind of interesting how that goes. Remind me later, and I'll have to tell you about my situation with that.
Oh yeah,
with the Pikachu beetle. That's a whole story. Oh, but anyways, carry on.
Well, now I want to know.
Okay, quick rundown of that. They had early 2000s. They did a giveaway with Nintendo and Cartoon Network for it was like a 1998 Pikachu new edition Beetle.
Yeah.
I won that. I have the letters and documentation and everything from it. I thought they were kidding when I first got it, and because I was at my wife's parents' house late one night, and I would use their computer because I didn't have one at the time, and I saw the thing on Cartoon Network, and I was like, all right, whatever, I'll just enter, and I sent off an email, and apparently had won. Went through all the stuff. We've got documentation. We were getting insurance on the car, figuring out the taxes for it, the letters back and forth. And they came back one day and called me while I was at work and said, well, you're a legal resident of Florida, so we're going to make yours null and void. You can't win it. And I'm like, you knew where I lived. I gave you all the information, and they sent me a letter explaining it, which I still have, and I actually framed it because it's from Cartoon Network and Nintendo with all the explanation. And they sent me a box of Cartoon Network swag, but that was the end of that. Like about a year and a half ago, I found we think is the lady that now owns the car I'd originally won, and I've talked with her about it some, which has been kind of funny. But yeah, those Nintendo contests can get weird.
It's someone who is from North Carolina but now lives in Florida. Why could a Florida resident not win? Because I've always seen that on some contests. But
So
what the actual hell?
You can blame old people, because.
I do.
Yeah, hey, I'm 42. I'm not too old, but
no, you're not old. You're not.
Not yet.
You literally just disproved it. You've not stopped laughing, therefore you've not aged.
Yeah,
fair enough. But they have certain laws that contests have to give so much of a notification and within certain information beforehand to protect elderly people from scams. So they make them void in Florida because it's so much paperwork they don't want to fight with it. So we even got to the point, like I was talking to family. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, and I was going.
I'm going to be back there soon.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's where my family's from. But
I'm from Central North Carolina. I lived in the Outer Banks for a few years for one of my first jobs.
Oh, nice. But yeah, we got to the point, like I was contacting family to legally move back to have my address changed to one of the houses and go there for a bit just to try and get the car. Because we were newly married. Yeah. I only had my old 1979 Chevy Monte Carlo that was falling apart. Like we had a newborn baby. We needed a car. So, but to my wife's credit, after everything happened, she promised she would get me a Beetle, and a couple years later, she did get me a cyber green 2000 Volkswagen Beetle Turbo that I drove for over 10 years. Loved that car until I couldn't drive it anymore.
Honestly,
So
if it wasn't, if it wasn't free, I think you got a better deal.
Yeah, no, she's amazing.
Yeah, that sucked. That was like that is actually a very sad story. I am so sorry that all that happened.
I laugh about it now. Like I'm scanning in the documentation and I'm trying to get in touch with a few of the gaming historian places to be like, hey, this is documentation for it. Do you guys want this to, to at least have with records, because they like getting a lot of that minutia and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of funny to see it. I almost had a Beetle shaped like a Pikachu.
Yeah, like. I think I might know the person who has it now. I wonder if it's the same person I'm thinking of. Is she the one? We talked to her
on Twitter. It's what was her name on that?
Was she like a collector, like collecting all those Pikachu memorabilia, or was it someone else?
I apologize, I can't remember her name off the top of my head because I'm horrible with those. But no, she actually collected some of the vehicles. I think she also got the PT Cruiser that was Lugia or whatever. She was working on those. She does have a lot of Pikachu stuff as well. Oh, it's going to drive me nuts until I figure it out.
Yeah, the person I was thinking of, I think their name was Pika Belchu. I'm not sure if that's them. If that's not them, then, like, either way, like, again, sorry about the fact that you did not get that car.
It's been so long I laugh about it now. It's not even bother me.
Yeah.
I have fun with the story more now. At least I have that.
Oh yeah, like I've never won a single Nintendo Power contest. I never did. Like I know people who have, but it's just that I enter, and I guess it's part of my luck, but I just never win these things. But there was so many of them like that I've entered, and I was hoping that I would at least be like either a win or like be like a runner-up or something for at least like one of them, and I would have been like, oh, I would have been satisfied with it. But yeah, still.
Okay, I found it. Her name is Grace. At MewIsMe700.
Oh, I know her.
Yeah, she's a Pokemon archivist, as she says. She's great to talk to. She's another person I keep meaning to have on the show because we wanted to talk about this.
I know her because she was doing Pokemon the Pokemon Center stuff, like archiving and everything.
Yep.
But that's a story for another day. I would actually like to talk about that like
great though.
In a different episode, yeah. But yeah. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, like I never won anything from Nintendo Power, but still, that did not stop me from loving Nintendo Power.
Same.
And I still got cool stuff. I still got like Pokemon cards. I've got like a couple of cool posters and stuff.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of the old
posters. Yeah,
and I was also, because it was connected with that, I was also a very frequent, thanks to my dad, customer of the Nintendo catalog that came with it. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of the merchandise that you can only get from that catalog, including an old like Polar Police hoodie with the Nintendo Power logo right here. I can actually grab that at some point, but I got like most everything I wanted in there that wasn't like hyper expensive, because I just kind of had to stagger it between birthday or Christmas, and thankfully my birthday is June 6th. I had like this halfway point. Lucky. The one thing that I wasn't lucky on, though, was when they came out with the 100th issue of Nintendo Power. They also came up with a catalog, which also had a 100th issue celebratory gold N64 controller. And I had my dad call for that as soon as we got the issue. They're like, oh, we've been sold out of those for 2 weeks. We just got the magazine today. What the actual heck? So, but hilarious enough, years later, I did get a gold controller, just didn't have that little sticker on it. But I do have the Donkey Kong 64 one that looks like bananas.
Oh, the banana one, yeah.
I have that one. Pretty much any of the special Zelda stuff and then some regular Nintendo stuff I got from there. I have like the old like poster board stuff, which you could fold up as your 5-year display for Nintendo Power, because that was my display for the longest time. And yeah,
I'll have to get together some of my Zelda marketing stuff and see if there's any of that you might want.
Speaking of which, before we move on to the last topic, I just want to bring something up. So usually at the end of a lot of the issues from like the late 90s to 2000s, and I think even in the 2010s when it was still going on before the last issue, there would be an advertisement for like selling ocarinas. Like it says, you found the ocarina, and I just posted a picture to show you both. It's a sweet potatoes, like the blue ocarina from Ocarina of Time.
Yep,
I remember that advertisement.
Yeah, I would see this advertisement a lot. Like they would not like. I don't like. They obviously were not from like Nintendo, but they would not affiliate or endorse. But they still had the ads on every Nintendo Power.
Yeah, I actually didn't buy from them until some years ago, because I do have several ocarinas, including just an old plastic one that I'd painted, because for Halloween 2000, I was Link from Ocarina of Time, and my dad, and I got one of those, like, little red ones that you get in a music store, because I'm a saxophonist, so we painted it blue with enamel.
Oh, nice.
I did the whole detailing of the Triforce around the band. I did get one of the nice Ocarina of Time ones from St. Louis Ocarina, which they're my second favorite company. But Songbird right there, I'm just going to go ahead and say this to the two of you, as well as anyone out there who is not familiar with Songbird. If you get an ocarina, get it from Songbird. I now have 3 ocarinas from them. I have the Fairy Ocarina, the Ocarina of Time, and they're very rare. They only make a few of them at a time. They're left-handed Ocarina of Time, which is what the one in the game looks like.
Yeah.
And those, because that sweet potato one, they do still sell that, but they have an even more detailed one now, and it looks pulled out of the game.
They're still around. Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah. Songbird Ocarina's around, and seriously, if you ever want to buy a Zelda type ocarina, get it from them. I want to get their Link's Awakening one as well, even though that's not as high a priority for me. But yeah, they're still around. And
I don't know if it was the same. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, of the 2 major ocarina companies, I love both of them. Songbird's the best, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was them or not, but I saw a bunch of these for sale from a vendor. I didn't stop to look too much over at Dragon Con, actually, just a month or so ago.
Dude, I was there.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. We'll have to meet up next year. Yeah, no, I've been going to Dragon Con every since 2008. But
this
that
was
was
my second time.
That was St. Louis Ocarina.
Okay.
And they are also very good. I have an Ocarina of Time repro from them. They are also very good. I like Songbird better. Quality wise, they're about on the same page, but for accuracy, appearance wise, Songbird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're both fantastic though. It's one of those where it's like, hey, do you want a steak or a cheeseburger? They're both amazing, but one's just objectively slightly better.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Like for me, I never bought a single one of those ocarinas from Songbirds, but I see them advertised a lot. But I honestly should at least get one, and I'm probably gonna get the blue ocarina from Ocarina of Time. At this point, like considering the fact that I've been reading a lot of Nintendo Power all my life and seeing all these advertisements, I owe it to myself to at least do it just once, at least in my life.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I have all my, again, I'm still unpacking my apartment. I know I've been in here over a year, but again, physical job. I have all of those set, and you can believe I'll get a picture of them once I've got them out and everything.
You got me looking through these going, I don't remember seeing that ad.
It was always the back of it, and always made me so happy. I never actually got it because I knew that my dad had helped me paint a plastic one. But, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, the other thing is that, like, just seeing all these ocarinas, there's a lot of good ones. Like, many of them are sold out now. Like, even the Navi is sold out. I would actually like to get that, too.
A bunch of them they do remake, especially they're not video game-based designs. But no, Songbird, like I said, I can absolutely vouch for their quality. Very
good. Nice. Yeah. All right, so we do have one last topic in regards to today's podcast. So how much has Nintendo Power meant to you? Zen, you're going to go first for this one.
So for me, it's kind of been a multi-generational thing with this. Like Nintendo Power was always my source of information growing up as a kid. It was kind of exposing me more to how the gaming world worked because I didn't have internet, when I was younger, and it was a while before I even got a computer when I got older. But now I can take these and all those memories and everything that's going on and show my kids, and they look at them and, I share it with other kids and other people. And it's always been kind of just a source of happiness. I always remember getting those issues or finding them or sneaking off in a grocery store just so I can get a few minutes in to read a few pages before my parents wondered where I disappeared to.
Yeah.
I was that kid. So yeah, like it's always meant a lot to me for that, and I just, as long as I have them, can go back. I go back and dive into them, and it's just like remembering those times so easily. Just diving into what I was like at the time.
Oh
and being
yeah.
able to share that.
Mm-hmm.
They're time capsules, every single one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Just having so many different issues where you had where you have like different things that they feature, like different games from each era, from NES all the way up to like the very beginning of the Wii U.
Yeah,
And
I mean, even down to the advertising and what they wrote, how they wrote it, showed you what was the zeitgeist at the time, what was important. Seeing things like pre 9/11 and after 9/11. Even
yeah, exactly.
the topic. Sorry, that changed a lot of the discussion and topic on things.
Yeah,
So,
definitely that. Yeah. What about you, Mantle?
For me, I mean, it really did mean a lot. For me, what, like I said earlier, was just this whole combination of everything I love so much in a single monthly publication where I could just dive in and be surrounded by what I loved, and you read new stuff about it, read stuff that I was on the same page with about it, and just get new information. And in today, I mean, regardless of being like affectionately known as a Zelda streamer or a big Zelda fan or like the Zelda person amongst most of my friends, I'm also, for the Zelda series, I'm very honored and humbled to know that pretty much all of them think of me as a walking encyclopedia, strategy guide, and atlas. And
Yeah.
part of that is not just for the Zelda series, but for many other games I just get full into because that's just how I am, but also for video game news. And I realize, as you were starting to talk about that, I was like, wait a minute, Nintendo Power helped forge that. I mean, I probably, again, I probably would have figured it out at some point myself anyway, but Nintendo Power helped forge it because I was the one who was always learning this. I was the one who was bringing Nintendo Power to school to like look through and all that. And even if it was mostly me, because I really didn't have many friends until I got to college and save a couple late middle school, early high school, I was always the one kid who was on top of the new stuff that was coming out. And some kids were trying to say, oh, but this. And I'm just, no, that's not. And many months later, be like, yeah, I told you so. But, and even like, on various servers I'm in, whether my own or others, I make sure in my own server, I've got the video game news section. But one of my rules for it is make sure you're posting from properly vetted sources. Also, make sure from reliable things. I mean, like, for example, I'll just say it. You can't spell ignorant without IGN. Yeah. I hate them. I hate Kotaku. They're both terrible, and they're brands.
I've been published on both.
Yeah.
That's just because they have a good person doesn't mean they're good themselves.
Yeah.
But no, it was always so exciting to see what the new cover was going to be, what the news was going to be, even if I had a feeling of what it was going to be, especially once we started getting more from the internet, just to dive into that same hype like we do for any direct or any new big news release. And video games have always been one of my biggest interests since even before I had cognitive recollection. And this just helped forge that. And it made me realize, it's like, hey, yeah, this is the people also enjoy this. And here's another extension. Because as with so many media, you want more and you can't always get more. Like, you love your games, but the game is there. I mean, yeah, you can always still enjoy it, but I can have another one. Or shows. Like, for example, one of my favorite shows we've only got 2 seasons of so far. We know there's a movie coming out, but all we know is the movie's coming out.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we want more, which is part of why my friends are very happy that the show has also resparked my fanfiction writing bug. So there's that. So you want more of that, whether it's just something else to enjoy that for. Nintendo Power always provided that, even if it was for a game that you just didn't care about.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, whenever they'd share some of like the Bratz games or whatever popular movie tie-in, I would look at these games and be like, I'm not going to play that. But neither at the same time, I was like, oh, why is this in here? But it was also just really cool, even in the time where, yes, we had the internet, but there weren't as many video game news things being published, being able to follow these developments live, like learning about the N64 before it had its official name.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Seeing these previews of this hardware, seeing these previews of these games, even then going back and seeing things that either just never happened or things that didn't make their way over here, like the 64 DD, or things that we all remember from the onset of their just starting. I followed Metroid Dread from the Fusion days.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that when we finally got that announced last year and it was Metroid Dread, I lost my mind.
Yes.
Because I had followed this since at least 2004, and suddenly, not only is it coming, it kept the name.
Yeah.
And we all followed it across each console as they were looking to do it, as it was on the forecast, off the forecast, and then just. And like Donkey Kong Racing, which never came out, and how many, just it's so cool to actually have physical proof of what things could have been, and then what things were.
Yep.
So to me, it really helped forge me as that news source, as that guide source, and just honed what was already a hardcore Nintendo fan.
Oh yeah. All right. Like for me, Nintendo Power meant so much to me because, like, growing up, like, I was always, like, into Nintendo, but I was way more into Nintendo during the 2000s when I was really into it. Like, the GameCube, the Game Boy Advance, then it was on the Wii, it was on the DS, and so on and so forth. Like, my favorite Nintendo console was the Super Nintendo, but I think it might be beaten out by a certain console that, let's just say, switch things up, like this console, the Nintendo Switch.
Yep, same.
This is not the OLED, by the way. It's just I just have the OLED Joy-Cons, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries, dude. Yeah, like I said, the N64 and Wii had always been for me. I love the Super Nintendo, but the Switch, because to me the Switch is so much its own thing, but also combines everything about the previous consoles that we all love.
All rolled into one. Yes, I loved it. It's
maybe the dissenting voice of Super Nintendo and Wii U for personal reasons.
Yeah. But
the Wii U owns, it's amazing. But
to
me, the only thing the Switch is missing is Virtual Console. But I know that's a weird business decision.
I don't agree with it, but the way they do it. But I'll probably save that for like a retro gaming topic in the future.
Right.
And it would not just be regarded to just Nintendo. Like, it's basically the whole industry. But I'll save that for like a future.
It's a great topic.
Yeah,
it's a fun discussion to have.
Yeah,
we've talked about.
But overall, in regards to Nintendo Power, just reading the issues, just seeing all the news, and it got me into a lot of games that I probably would have ignored or never would have thought about, and I am so glad that I've actually got into them. Like, I know, like, a game like Super Smash Bros. Melee got me into Fire Emblem, but Nintendo Power got me into Animal Crossing. It got me to play more Zelda. It got me to play more Metroid. It got me to play, like, a lot of the smaller, obscure Nintendo games, as well as a lot of third-party stuff in general. Around that time, it's like, I got Mega Man and Bass for the Game Boy Advance. I got the Sonic Advance games. And the list just keeps going on and on. Like, just being there around the time where, like, just where everything was leading up to the release of the Wii, and when the Wii launched was there. Twilight Princess. I got Red Steel, which is not a good game. I got
but it's still fun.
Excite Truck. I got
Excite Truck.
And of course,
so good.
Wii Sports. There was just so many games in general. Like, I actually liked the Wii a lot.
Oh, same.
And I remember just reading issues of Nintendo Power. There was a game that was for a much older audience, but it was so hardcore, it was so gruesome, I loved it. And that game is called Mad World.
I still have it.
That game
I've not played it yet, but I do have it.
That game is fun. Like,
John DiMaggio.
Yeah, John DiMaggio was one of the announcers, and they had Greg Proops, who was part of Whose Line Is It Anyway before Drew Carey came in, and they were the two announcers for that. And Stephen Bloom, I believe, was the main character. Such a great game overall. The only problem with the game is that it was short, but it's fun. It's fun.
Good to know.
So many games I probably would have never thought to have played, and I'm glad that I did.
Oh yeah.
The Wii was just an absolute, like, gem.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, sure, shovelware, but there's so many great games that people need to really need to really talk about. And
Yeah.
Private Maverick actually brings up a really, really good point that we actually did not talk about one of the most controversial Nintendo Power issues. It was the second issue, which was Simon's Quest.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it was controversial is because of the fact that it actually gave so many kids nightmares at the time, to the point where parents actually called Nintendo to complain about that. And yeah, that was like in the end, like that was the second issue. That was towards the end of 1988.
Mm-hmm.
They were advertising Simon's Quest at the time.
Yeah, I have that issue.
I'm pretty sure. I think I do. I think it's one of the ones that's boxed up right now. The biggest thing about that was Belmont standing there holding the severed head of Dracula.
Yep.
And you know, I don't know how many kids I remember ever hearing got nightmares from it, but I'm sure parents at the time, you know, were all upset because, oh, look at that, because they had, you know, it was pretty graphic for the time, even though you could tell it was just a dude holding a dummy's head. But we were idiot kids. What did we know? You know, for us, it was just like, holy crap, they did that.
I didn't have the issue at the time, although honestly, I was younger when that one came out. I'm not going to say how old because I try not to on Twitch, but on that though, I was the kid whose dad trusted them to buy Resident Evil 2 for the N64 when they were 14.
Mm-hmm.
Back before game stores had to make sure you were over a certain age, because my dad understood the ESRB guidelines, but he also knew and trusted me for it. I was also the kid who it's okay if anyone was. I was never scared of the dark.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure you guys also both grew up with like knowing people who have like the nightlights plugged in the low outlets. Like I hated those because I have to have like total darkness to sleep. And even when I was like 5, I would unplug mine in my bedroom, and it made my mom so mad. I'm like, why? I'm the one who's sleeping in here.
I liked him because I'd use the shadows to do stuff if I was sitting there bored and couldn't sleep.
See, for me, I would play whatever in my head, but I'm like, no, I need darkness. But I was also the kid who had, on a note of that silliness, I also had this big 6-foot-tall 3D pop-up poster that my dad had got. It's called The Visible Man, and it was this really awesome anatomical model. 3D. Uh-huh. Like half of it was muscles, the other half was bones and organs. And I had that hanging on the outside of my closet as a 5-year-old.
Oh yeah,
like in the dark, didn't care.
So you posted the cover for this, and that says September, October. So if that was 1988, I would have been 8 years old because I didn't turn 9 until Christmas Day of that year. So yeah, I would have been an 8-year-old when this came out.
Yeah, September 1988. I was a ripe age of 2. And yeah, I'm the youngest. Like I'm really young.
Just a little bit. I'm only slightly older than you.
Yeah, but yeah, like Nintendo Power in general, like just absolutely. I miss reading those magazines so much. I absolutely love them a lot, to the point where I am just hoping that one day that people will find out about the legacy and left. Mm-hmm. But even though the spirit of Nintendo Power lives on in both Nintendo Force as well as the podcast, there is another spirit where it lives on, and that's the Nintendo Direct.
Oh, for sure. Yep. Absolutely. Because the Nintendo Direct to me is like the video version of them.
Like Nintendo Direct, I remember at first in the beginning, people hated the way Nintendo Direct was. They didn't like the format. Now, like, there will be times where, like, after months go by, people will be like going to Nintendo's social media asking, when is the next Nintendo Direct? Nintendo, I don't care about this. I want the Nintendo Direct now, and all that stuff. That's
people are annoying with that sometimes.
Yes, people were. They were.
It cracks me up because I same as you guys. I was always into them from day one.
Me too.
And the fact that we just get shadow dropped them out of nowhere and people lose their damn minds, and also because Nintendo is so good about staggering them and then giving so much information. That's part of why people are like, I didn't hear this news. I'm just shut up.
Exactly. Like the thing is that Nintendo Direct as well. Even Nintendo Power back in the day, it was like there's always something for everyone, but there's always going to be times where like not everything is going to be for you. There may be just because there's stuff that's not for you doesn't mean that there's not stuff for anyone else. Like for example, like if someone doesn't like Castlevania, but I love Castlevania, I would be excited for it.
Yeah.
And even if there's a popular series I'm not into, but I know for a fact that I have friends who are into it, I would be happy for them.
And it makes me think of them. Yeah, I'm the same. And one of the other funny ones with it is we all three know that for numerous times ever since Tears of the Kingdom was first announced, people get all pissy when there's not even a little hint of something. I'm just like, most people don't realize, but the three of us are big enough gamers and Nintendo fans that we know that most of the time, Nintendo is really, really, really good about only announcing a game less than a year out from release, 2 years maybe. It's only in rare exceptions where they need way more release. Yes, exactly. Only in rare exceptions where there are very good reasons behind it. The fact that, but they were also very transparent about, hey, we didn't like where it was heading. We've scrapped everything and are starting over.
Yep.
Oh, it's an ongoing joke with us for fun. So
gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like, and that I agree with. But as we all know, regardless of any overused quotes, typically speaking, Nintendo does only announce things like 1 or 2 years out. Extenuating circumstances in certain situations notwithstanding, it's not like Final Fantasy VII Remake or anything.
No, it's not.
No shit. Kingdom Hearts 3, no shade. But I love Kingdom Hearts 3, but I still enjoyed it. But I noticed so many of my friends, they got themselves too lit up by the hype for the past several years of it being announced, and it got them. But no, for me, for the Zelda games, again, I'm one of the biggest Zelda fans around, but anytime there's a Nintendo Direct or anything and there's no Zelda news, I'm not upset.
Yeah.
There's other stuff I enjoy. And even if universe forbid there ever was a Nintendo Direct about stuff I just didn't care about, I don't see it because there's so much I do care about.
Yeah.
I'd be okay because to me it's still interesting because like whenever they're doing like, let's take a look at all these titles coming out on Nintendo Switch and they just show that whole reel of stuff, I'm like, I won't play that, but that looks cool.
Exactly.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, all that stuff.
Like the most recent one had a lot of farm games, and I'm not really into them. But for those who like them, cool.
Oh, absolute same. But I'm honest, I got kind of. I know that was a big theme. I got kind of annoyed at everyone just ragging on it for that. I'm like, oh, come off it, people. We're in autumn.
I like to make jokes about it. I mean, but after that one came out, after any of them comes out, or any of the announcements, I'm hearing something from my daughter because she'll watch them and she'll be like, when you talk about this, like the Kirby game, like holy crap, she would not even learn about the next Kirby game. That's her thing.
Yeah.
But when
for me, like again, even if they hadn't announced anything about Tears of the Kingdom, I wouldn't have been upset.
Yeah.
It's because I always go. I'm sure you guys are similar. I always go into every single Direct. I expect nothing.
Expect nothing. Come back with everything.
I'm always
just mad they stopped the Smash announcements.
That's it. No Smash. No, but in all seriousness, I have 3 words in regards to how some games should be like showcased and how like Nintendo Directs are. Less is more.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
They give you less, and you're gonna be left wanting more. Yes. And then by the time they finally give you another one, you would be absolutely hyped. Sometimes undersell and overdeliver. That's the thing. That's how they do it.
I think it's also kind of we're skewed a little bit because part of this, especially for us, like we do our show, where we're covering the news, so we need the information to be able to talk about. So it's like that kind of thin line to walk on. Like how much do we want to know about it versus how we want to cover it, and kind of go from there. It's always been a fun dichotomy for that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
go on.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say, but it's like, even if we're only given just the tiniest bit, I still will work everything from that without just going crazy about it. Because, I mean, we're gonna get that drip fed in there, but then there's also the people who want to be like completely blown away and surprised by everything. And Nintendo Power, the funny thing for me was that even though I would pour over those issues, there were still some things which I would like unintentionally skip over because I wanted that full experience for myself. And that happened with me with some of the N64's hardware. And then I went back later, I was like, oh my gosh, this is even cooler now. But
that even kind of brings it up. Like something that Nintendo Power did specifically, you look at a lot of their guides that were in the magazine, they would only cover the first certain amount. They didn't want to spoil it. They would sometimes do later on a separate thing, but they would just try and help you get into it and let you go from there.
And that was a huge appetizer for many people, whether they had actually played the game yet or not. And as someone who, on many school trips, their classmates would hand them their copy of Link's Awakening and ask me to beat certain sections for them, even though I didn't have a Game Boy at the time. that was fine. But no, and then again, like pretty much any game that had a Nintendo Power guide, I got that guide for. And again, I love those too because as we were talking earlier, they would guide you through it. And I love collecting strategy guides, same as Nintendo Powers, because first off, collector's value. Secondly, a nice way to find everything no matter how much you do on your own. So it's just a good backup resource for that. Third, all the extra information and pretty art for maps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maps.
Yeah. So many maps.
God, maps. And as I would always carry them around with me, and like once I get those game guides unpacked, so I have them like temporarily unpacked because the problem is with the way that my apartment is. I lost some bookshelves in this move because they had just like lasted too many years. So I need to move space before I can build bookshelves. So I've just temporarily unpacked everything, and then I'm just gonna like rearrange because I love rearranging shelves though, and game guides are part of that.
Yeah.
But no, Nintendo Power and the Nintendo Directs. I mean, I agree with that assessment again. That the Directs are Nintendo Power just video format. So it's basically the games forecast and the previews and added information all in one rolling format.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, Nintendo Power, even back in the day, like had unique ways that they would kind of unveil stuff, not just introduction through the magazine itself, but there's also the case of like Dragon Warrior, which we now know as Dragon Quest. That got its start in North America with Nintendo Power because they couldn't quite figure it out, so they just gave it out with subscriptions, which that was before my time of being subscribed because I was a little kid at the time. But I remember hearing about that and eventually getting a copy of it. And there was always little fun things they would add to different issues, which we talked about a little bit before the show, like the Smash Brothers live CD, which I've never seen anywhere else. The full orchestral show that you could only get. And this is one I had to hunt down for a while, and I got yelled at when I bought it. I found it in a store, sealed. Bought it from the people. Right there in front of them, opened it up to get the CD out because I was going to listen to it on the way home. This is great. They were pissed. They were like, if they had known I was going to open it, they would not have let me buy it. And I'm like, what does it matter? Like, I'm going to read the magazine, and I'm going to listen to the CD.
Remember, never remove from box, NRFB.
No, there's certain things I will open. The hell with that.
Yeah, I was just joking about that, but
yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, but I do have that CD somewhere. I don't know. It should still work. But yeah, I still have that.
If it doesn't, mine is perfect, and I could quietly have it magically appear somewhere for you.
All right. Yeah, as Private Maverick says, got that particular CD from an issue. Yeah, same. I don't remember which issue, but I did get it and listened to it.
January 2003, it actually says on there.
Oh, January 2003, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember getting that one. Yeah, because that issue arrived here around like the tail end of 2002, and it was going to be in stores in January. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's just about it for this show tonight. Yeah. So, before we sign off, my question is, Zen, where can we find you?
You can find me, as we say on our show, on the internet, at Zenspath, Zenspath, over on Twitter. I'm also over at twitch.tv/Zenspath, just /Zenspath, where I stream on occasion, not as often as you guys do, but I do it just for the heck of it, digging into my old collection. And then also you can find our videos over at youtube.com/ZenspathCom, where we do like, I do like an opening series of games where I record in best quality I can all the opening sequences and everything from different games and talk about it, as well as our podcast, the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast.
All right. Very nice. Mantle, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Twitchiverse if you just click on my name there, or the link that Shellshock so kindly put in chat. Thank you very much. So just twitch.tv/Mantle Ferox. You can also find me on Twitter, also under Mantle Ferox. That's I post a lot of stuff for the stream, as well as general thoughts and retweets relevant to my interests. So right now, a lot of Zelda, Splatoon, and Zombieland Saga stuff. I'm also an avid cosplayer, primarily video game characters, and that's also linked there on my Twitch as well as on Twitter. That is m_factor_cosplay. That one's a bit I've not updated it quite as much because it's a newer page, but steadily adding more stuff on there. But yeah, I same as Shellshock, I play a lot of retro games. But the biggest thing is I'm mostly Nintendo, secondarily PlayStation streamer, and I just work's been busy with stuff, but this is a hobby. I love it, and I've made some awesome friends on Twitch thanks to our shared love of video games, especially Nintendo.
Nice.
All right, cool. Well, as always for me, you can find me at here at every single social media, same name, ShellshockPrime, and I do my streams a lot and sharing with Shellshock. I like to keep it on Sundays usually, unless other people are more comfortable on certain other days because of availability. But I tend to keep them on Sundays, but I will continue to do that. I'm still figuring out the guests for next week's episode, but next week is going to be Halloween memories or Halloween nostalgia. Still got to finalize the title and everything because Halloween's coming up, so that's gonna be great.
I'm gonna be in a wedding on that day, so I won't be able to be around.
That's fine. Funny enough,
my friend is getting married on Halloween, so.
Funny enough, I have a wedding to go to like a few days before. So yeah.
So do I. Actually, I'm the photographer at my friend's wedding later this week.
Nice. Yeah, my friend, she and her fiance are getting married on Halloween. I'm in the wedding party, so I have to be there a few days early. So yeah, and actually, it's around your old stomping grounds, Zen.
Yep. But yeah.
Oh, nice.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, so but yeah, that's gonna do it for the show. And I will figure out how everything will be for the next episode. But stay tuned for that. Till then, take care.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for joining in.